That's the reason why 92% of resolutions fail. It wasn't that you didn't want those things. It's that there were obstacles that got in the way of those things. And so I want to give you a heads up of the three enemies to what Jesus is going to do in 2023. So I just want to kind of predict. I'm going to put my Nostradamus hat on for a little bit. And I'm going to predict what are the three things that are going to get in your way in this new year to keep you from experiencing what Jesus wants to do. And the first one is control. Control. We have this pursuit for control. In her book about It's All About Control, the author Jennifer Dukes-Lee says that the craving for control believes I'm safer and I'm more secure if I'm in charge. Some of you, that's like your life motto, you know? The world would be better, everything would be smoother if I was the one in charge. Some of you, that's why you say that you're a control freak, you know, or maybe other people call you a control freak. That's one of the reasons we love being in control. We think that we'll be safer and more secure. And for some of us, control is our greatest obstacle to what God wants. Because here's the thing. If you're in control, guess who's not? God. If you're the one who's in charge, guess who's not? God. In her book, The Cost of Control, Sharon Hodde Miller says this: study after study has shown a link between feeling out of control and experiencing anxiety disorders. I'll just pause right there. That's where a lot of us lived the last 3 years, in 2020, 2021, and 2022. We felt out of control, and that skyrocketed our anxiety. Sharon continues, the illusion of control is powerful. If we feel like we are in control, it doesn't matter if we actually are. I mean, isn't that what happened during 2020? We realized just how not in control we were, and it wasn't that we lost a sense of control, we lost the illusion of control. Sharon continues, she says, we as individuals and we as a culture crave control so desperately that we will reject reality and live in denial of our limitations for as long as we possibly can. And I told you I had a book goal for this year. I read 70 books in 2022. And one of the best ones was a book our whole staff read together called The Cost of Control by Sharon Hodde Miller, which is where that quote came from. And it wasn't just a good book in terms of intellectually, it was a great book experientially because at various moments throughout this past year, I felt completely out of control. In 2022, I went to the ER 4 times, had my gallbladder removed, had COVID a second time, had multiple CAT scans and x-rays. I definitely hit my out-of-pocket maximum with my insurance company. So I'm hoping to not do that again in 2023. But as I went all throughout last year with me being sick and my kids being sick and realizing my lack of control, what I found is that I didn't actually in those moments crave more of God, if I was honest. I craved more control. I realized what was longing deep in my heart was not, man, God, I want to experience more of you. God, come help and fill this space. Honestly, in those moments, what I wanted was I just want to be back in control again. And that's my fear for you, is that if you got what you wanted this year and you got control, what might happen is you might get what you want and actually miss God. So the first enemy to what God wants to do in our lives this year, I think, is control. The second one is comfort. We love comfort. Not all of you who are watching from home today, but some of you may be doing so because you love comfort. I know you got cup holders here at the college, and these are comfy seats, but maybe your lazy boy or your couch is even more comfortable because you can wear PJs there with less shame than you would here. But we live in a culture that loves comfort. We love the easy path. That's why we love 2-day Amazon Prime shipping. That's why we love clickless grocery store pickup. We love things that are easy. And for some of us, we just actually want the easiest way possible. And the challenge for you is, if that's you, is that God will not always call you to the easiest thing. Like one way to test if it's God is this path easy, therefore it's God? If you think so, I'd encourage you to make a reading goal for this year of this book. Because that's at least not how God worked in this book. But for others of us, the reason why we're longing for and preferring comfort is that we're exhausted. I found throughout those difficult, out-of-control seasons in 2022 for me that I would be longing for comfort, and that was a sign that I was exhausted, overwhelmed, and headed towards burnout. And so comfort sometimes is a sign, hey, I'm longing for the wrong thing. Comfort can also be a warning sign that I'm living in an unhealthy way. All of us, I just want you to pause for a second and think about this question. How did you grow and change last year? Like, think back to January 1st of 2022 and think back through the past 12 months, the highs and the lows. How did you grow? How did you change? How did God work in your life? And I would hazard a guess from my own experience personally and from pastoring for 15 or 20 years that what happened is that you changed and grew not in the most comfortable times, but the most uncomfortable ones. We rarely change when things are easy and comfortable, but we often change when things are hard and uncomfortable and difficult. As the cliche goes, you don't change in your comfort zone. You don't grow there. And so I'd encourage you, beware of making comfort your number one priority. Finally, third enemy is callousness. Callousness. Every Sunday, I'm blown away at the talents that people have that I don't. I listen to our team leading us in musical worship, and I'm just in awe. I sang in my youth choir as a teenager, and I realized that was not my calling in life. I took 1 year of guitar lessons in high school, and I still can't play Amazing Grace on a guitar. I took 2 weeks of piano lessons from my mom. 2 weeks, that's how well it went. Had 2 lessons. So when I watch the team up here, or I watch the team on Christmas Eve, I'm just blown away because they have skills that I don't. But part of what has enabled them to develop those skills is not just the hours and hours and hours of practice. It's what's happened to their body. Jake and Hans and Josh, who was playing drums today, who also plays guitar, if you went to them, they would all have calluses on their fingertips. It's what enables them to play guitar so well, because when you first start playing guitar, it's actually painful to press those strings into the fretboard. But over time, they develop calluses on their fingertips so they no longer feel the pain and discomfort, and they begin to just make beautiful music. Well, here's what I discovered in 2022 that's leading me to 2023. Callous fingers create beautiful music, but a callous heart destroys a beautiful life. And for some of us, we've developed calluses on our hearts that are keeping us from experiencing what God wants to do, because that callus is a hard place that's covering over a wound. The one thing that probably happened to all of us at some point this year was we got hurt, disappointed, let down by somebody. Often the people who are closest to us actually leave the deepest hurts, the deepest wounds. And those calluses that develop over our hearts are not helpful like the ones that are on the fingers of a guitar player. And when life shatters us and we get hurt, what happens is that we tend to protect ourselves in that place so we don't get hurt again. But the problem is that often protects us from the very thing that God wants to do. And I believe that God wants to speak to you today and throughout this year. But if your heart is calloused and you're not open, you're not sensitive to his spirit, he may be speaking, but you're not going to be listening and you're not going to hear it.